There are a whole lot of videos here that talk about using triads to play walking bass lines, but I'm going to show you a different and probably much more effective way to use triads to play walking bass lines. Hello friends and neighbors, welcome back to the Brownstone. Today we are going back to the idea of playing walking bass lines and learning walking bass lines. Today I wanted to talk about a particular way to use triads to play through our trusty 12-bar blues progression. Now, I need to tell you something. The chord progression that we've been focusing on for this little series all about walking bass lines has all been centered around a 12-bar blues. But with this method, you could apply these ideas, the ideas that we've discussed so far, and the ideas that we'll discuss today. You can apply these ideas to any set of chord changes. So I don't care whether you're playing a 12-bar blues, a modal tune that has only 2 chords, or giant steps. These ideas will work for any chord progression. Today we're talking about the old 12-bar blues and playing triads through this particular chord progression. Now, this is not going to be your typical triad exercise, although if you are not able to just take a root position triad through the 3 chords of a 12-bar blues, then I suggest you practice that before you move on. I'll show it to you quickly. All I'm doing is taking the 3 chords of our 12-bar blues. So that's C major to F major, our 4 chord, to G major, our 5 chord. So if I were to just play the major triads, if I go through the notes, I've got C at the 3rd fret of the A string up to E, at the 2nd fret of the D string, up to the 5th fret of the D string, or the open G. So the notes are C to E to G. Now, when you play that particular pattern and put the 3rd note and 5th note, this is the 3rd and the 5th of the scale. When you put those 2 notes on the same string, you get a very distinct shape on the fretboard. So I can apply that shape to the 1 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord. Now, the 4 and the 5 chord are F and G, both major. So I can play the F here, I can play the G here. That's 3rd fret of the D string to 5th fret of the D string. But I have the octave of those notes at the 1st fret of the E string and the 3rd fret of the E string. So if you don't know how to play this particular line, I suggest that you practice this over and over again until you get it under your fingers and into the muscle memory before you move on to the idea that we're going to talk about today. So, simple root position triad walking bass line going through a 12-bar blues. Sounds like this. Back to the 1 chord, up to F, the 4 chord, back to the 1 chord, C, 5 chord, G, down to the 4 chord, back to the 1 chord. Now I could also play that 5 chord at the 3rd fret of the E string, going down to the 1st fret of the E string. So if you don't know how to play that line, that's all good. Just practice those 3 triads going through the 12-bar blues until you get it. You really get it. All right, friends and neighbors, as I like to say on this channel, here's where things get super cool. Because what I can now do is take these same 3 notes and change the order, come up with a different shape and play through the same progression in a way that I think can sound even more melodic And we're moving more towards this idea of voice leading. We'll talk about that in another video. But check this out. In the first triad, I've got 3 notes. If I play that C, volume, if I play that C to E to G, that's my triad. That's my root to the 3rd to the 5th. But something super cool happens when you start your triad from the 3rd. Playing the 3rd on the downbeat can be a super cool sound. I've talked about this before in previous videos. I just haven't applied it to the 12-bar blues. But here, as I said, is where things can get super cool. If I were to just practice playing 3rd, 5th to the root, right? Maybe I'll go 3rd, 5th, root, 5th. And just take that shape through the chord progression, well, I get a very cool sound. 3, 5, 1, 5. Just playing those 4 notes, changing the order of the triad. Third, 5th, root, 5th to the 4 chord. Cool sound, right? So this is one thing that I can practice. But another idea would be to take the same notes and maybe change the position of the 5th and move that down an octave. When I do that, I get a very particular cool sound. And what happens now is I can play a different kind of arpeggio that goes from the 3rd to the 3rd, right? Because if I play this, I've got, there's my 3rd, there's my root, there's my 5th, but I'm going to take the 5th down the octave, which means the G is now going to be at the 3rd fret of the E string. But then check it out. If I go down to the open E, that's my 3rd. So now my triad can look like this. There's the E, that's the 3rd. There's C, that's the root. There's the 5th, G. And then there's E again, the lower octave of the 3rd. So if I take this new shape and apply it to the progression, I get a very cool and very different sound. Check this out. I hope that makes sense. I'll take you through it. So what's happening is I'm creating a new shape. And then once I have recognized that shape and gotten that shape under my fingers, I can then apply that shape to each sort of target note, being the 3rd of each of our chords of the 12-bar blues, right? So if I look at the triads, once again, I'll show you. I've got C, that's the root. Here's the 3rd. This is our key note because we're starting from the 3rd on each of these chords. So that's the note E at the 2nd fret of the D. The 5th is G. So C, E, and G. Those are the 3 notes. But if I change the order and move the octaves around a little bit, I get a different shape altogether. And when I recognize that as a shape that my hand remembers, that my fingers know, then I can easily apply that shape to each of the notes that we have to start from, each of the 3rds of our chords. So the 3rd of the C is E. So then I can take this shape. There's the 3rd. There's the root. There's the 5th. There's the octave of the 3rd. Now, just play through that. you can play it ascending and descending. Right? As you do that, you get more comfortable with the shape of this pattern. So, if I move my triad up to F, I've got F at the 3rd fret of the D string. My 3rd is going to be the note A at the 2nd fret of the G string. My 5th is going to be the note C at the 5th fret of the G string. But if I take that C and move it down the octave, I'm at the 3rd fret of the A string. Now, if that sounds confusing to you at all, it's okay. Let me just show you the shape of what I'm talking about. What's happening here is I'm changing the order of the notes of the triad. Whereas before, you play a triad starting from the root and you go root up to the 3rd and up to the 5th. What I'm doing here is I'm playing the 3rd, going down to the root, and then going down further to play the 5th an octave below where you would normally play if you were just playing like a root position 1, 3, 5 triad. So I have, if I'm working from that 4 chord, the F is my root. And if I'm starting from the 3rd, my 3rd is going to be the note A at the 2nd fret of the G string. So here I can play the A and then go down to the root, the F. Right above the F is going to be my 5th. So if I'm at the 3rd fret of the D string with the F, my 5th is going to be the same fret of the string above. So at the 3rd fret of the A string, there's my C. So root position triad is like this. This particular formation of the triad goes 3rd to the root to the 5th. But then check it out. There's my 3rd again. And if I want, I can complete the whole triad and play 2 octaves. So I have the 3rd, the root, the 5th, there's the 3rd again, and then I can finish at the root at the 1st fret of the E string. That's the note F. So I have this shape that I have established. That's on the 1 chord. I can play the same shape from the 4 chord. If I move up to the 5 chord, let's take a look at the triad. The triad is going to be G at the 5th fret of the D string. My 3rd is going to be the note B. That's the 4th fret of the G string. If I move up to the 5th, that's the note D at the 7th fret of the G string. But if I take that D down the octave, I'm going to play that at the 5th fret of the A string, which means my shape will look like the other 2 shapes. It's the same shape, just applied to different notes of the progression. That note being the 3rd, by the way. So there's my 3rd, that's the note B. There's the root note, that's the note G. There's the 5th, that's the note D. And then I can play the B an octave lower at the 2nd fret of the A string, and if I want, I can complete the pattern by playing the root an octave lower at the 3rd fret of the E string. Now, when I apply this shape, this is the bass line that I get for the 12-bar blues, starting from the 3rd of each chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. Got it? All right, friends, I'm going to leave it there. But the next step would be once you have these shapes down and you can play through the progression using the ascending and descending patterns, you can also mix and match ascending and descending patterns to come up with your own sort of combinations of different ways to play through the progression. And if you want to take it a step further, you can combine these inversions of the triad with the root position of the triad. And when you connect the chords in that way, you get a really beautiful sound that connects the chords in a different way. It becomes even more melodic, and it really makes you think about where your bass line, your walking bass line, is going. Maybe I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next video, but for now, just practice this shape, moving from the third to the octave of the third, whether you're ascending or descending. I'm going to leave you with that. And listen, if you like this video, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I appreciate you visiting me here in the Brownstone, and I'll see you in the next video very soon. Peace.